guys, what's going on? It's Savius again. Back with another analysis video for, I believe this is the third boss that we downed in Heroic Blackrock Foundry. This is Beastmaster Darmac. I'm going to go ahead and roll it out now. Honestly, it's a relatively simple fight. He's got a few mechanics. The main mechanic here is he has 3 mounts in this room. You'll see he has a wolf, he has an elk, and he has a Rylac. And starting at 85%, he will, at 85, 65, and 45%, he will mount the closest one of those to him. Other than that, throughout the fight, he has 2 abilities, Pin Down and Call the Pack, where he just calls a bunch of little cannon fodder ads out and you just group them up and AoE them down. Pin Down is a moderate raid-wide AoE, and it has those little swirlies and spears fall from the ceiling. If they land on people, as you would expect, they get pinned down. It's very similar to the Four Kings mechanic from Mogosham Vaults. So you definitely want to avoid getting hit by those, especially as a healer. Beyond that, every time he mounts something, he goes onto the mount. He doesn't do anything. Well, he still does pin down, and he still calls the pack. But then you have to deal with the ads abilities. And this specific mount, Cruel Fang, he leaps around. He puts this bleed debuff on people. It's called Rend and Tear. You want to spread out for that to keep it from getting on too many people to mitigate some of the damage. Beyond that, he also has an ability that you'll see coming up called Savage Howl, which is just another big AoE ability that you just heal through. There's no way to mitigate it. You just heal through it. And that's Cruel Fang. Now, every time one of these mounts die, Darmac will retain one of their abilities. So for Cruel Fang, when Cruel Fang dies, Darmac retains the ability Rend and Tear. So he will occasionally jump around and put bleeds on people. So again, after this point, when he gets that ability, you want to continue spreading out so that you mitigate that bleed. You still want to avoid pin down. And you want to continue dealing with the pack ads as they come in. So we get Cruel Fang down, and it's just a matter of DPSing the boss, dealing with pin down, dealing with the new ability that he picks up, which, since you were dealing with that exact ability during Cruel Fang, you already know how to handle that. One person, I think, got hit with a spear right there, and you'll see me screw up that mechanic a couple times this fight as well. It's like a tank died there, not sure what happened exactly. But the fight can seem like a bit of a clusterfuck. It can seem like there's a lot going on, but realistically, there isn't. We downed this boss after 2 or 3 attempts, honestly, with a lot of us going into it blind. I know I don't watch any videos for this fight. I know that's bad to say, but I'm more of a hands-on learner. I go in, I read the dungeon journal entries and everything, and I just adjust from there. So here at 65%, you see him pick up his second mount, Iron Crusher. And I think, honestly, there's a reason that we go in the order that we go in, because you want to save the Rylac specifically for last, because his ability, he gets like fire, and he puts fire everywhere, and I don't know. From my understanding, it's easier to do it in this fashion, with the wolf first, the elk second, and then the Rylac last. But Iron Crusher has a couple of abilities, as they all do. Right there you saw Tantrum, which is another big AoE that you deal with. Now this is a heavy AoE phase, so you want to have some CDs available. My trank just came back up from the initial use on Cruel Fang, so that's good timing on my part that I had that ability up and was able to use it for 2 of the mini bosses. Or 2 of the mounts rather. The other ability is Stampede, where he will do a sort of point blank AoE, knock everybody back that's close into him, but then he will also, and you saw that right there, and then he'll charge at a random person. That can do a lot of damage if you stack up. And like I said, here's my first failure to pin down because I just wasn't paying attention. I made an excuse and said I was too big. I didn't see the circle. I was tunneling on something. Don't tunnel on this fight. If you're going to tunnel on anything in this fight, tunnel on the pin down cooldown. Make sure you know when that's going to happen so that you can avoid it. especially as a healer, because you know you lose DPS and everything. Not that this is a DPS race from my experience, but DPS have to take time away from the ads, away from dealing with the mount, in order to break healers out. And then healers getting stuck in, that can lead to tanks dying, that can lead to members of the raid dying unnecessarily. So you see he's still jumping around, but he also picks up Tantrum, which you'll see him cast for the first time here. And Tantrum, again, in conjunction with Pin Down, is a healthy amount of AoE damage. We ran 5 healers for this, which is not too bad, but we ran a Discipline Priest and a Holy Paladin on top of the Resto Shaman, Resto Druid, and the Holy Priest. I think maybe if both priests were holy, it would be easier, but it's honestly hard to say. At the very least, we'd have another CD. Because you don't really want to stack up on this, you can't get great use out of Barrier, but you can still get decent use out of it by putting it on top of the melee and the tanks. Same goes for Spirit Link. They're still useful, but the Shamans also have Healing Tide. Now, the boss is almost at 45% here, which means he's going to jump on his next mount, the Rylak, known as Dreadwing, I believe. So he gets on Dreadwing. Dreadwing does a frontal calm fire blast, which again you'll see me fail to quite a few times. And then he randomly sets parts of the room on fire. You think his breath is, it actually looks like the breath is what is setting the room on fire. But the other thing he does is he puts a debuff on people, Conflagration. I can't remember exactly what the debuff does, but it looks like it's a pretty nasty dot. And if they have the bleed on them as well, it can be pretty bad. He also puts a stacking debuff on the tanks, but that's not something that you really need to be concerned with. Conflagration, however, should be dispelled. We did a very poor job of doing so, and yeah, like it definitely needs to be dispelled. You know, that if the breath, I don't know if the breath attack, the breath debuff is as bad as a Conflagration debuff, because it looks like every few seconds from Conflagration you either pulse with the large AoE or something. It does a lot of damage, so you really want to focus on dispelling that. As far as the frontal cone goes, you just stick in close to the Rylak and you can avoid it much better. So you want to try not to be too far out, but you also still want to spread. And when Dreadwing dies, Darmac will pick up the breath ability, but it won't be called Infernal Breath. It'll be called Superheated Shrapnel. You'll see it there. Somehow he finds a flamethrower or something. I don't know. And that's how he mimics the breath attack, but you'll see him pick that up. It looks like he also retains another, like one of the other abilities or something, or maybe people are just standing in fire. I don't know. From my understanding, he only picks up one ability from each of his mounts. So now it's just a matter of we're dealing with the frontal cone fire, we're dealing with Tantrum, we're dealing with Pin Down, and we're dealing with Rend and Tear. So you want to spread out, you want to avoid Pin Down, and you just want to heal through the Tantrum damage. And if you have any major CDs, which again you're going to see me screw this up here in a second because I'm not focusing the Pin Down CD. I believe this is the point where it happens, but we'll see. Pin Down is about to occur, and I know that it's happening, and the Tantrum goes out, I think. No, it still hasn't. It's coming up though. You're gonna see me screw up in a pretty bad way. The boss is just under 20% now. He has a Tantrum coming up. There's a Pin Down that I failed to in the middle of casting a Tranquility, which is horrible. And what I was talking about earlier, like that's such a major failure to me, because with the Tantrum that is about to occur right now, people get lower than they should have been. Had I not screwed up that Pin Down, had I had been successful in completing that Channel of Tranquility, everyone would have been much more stable. I don't think anyone died, if you know, or maybe they did, but people certainly wouldn't have been low, and no one would have been in any real danger of dying had that Tranquility actually been able to complete its channel. could make the argument that, you know, if I were a shaman or if I were a monk, I'd have revival or healing tide totem, and it's just a set it and forget it sort of thing. But, you know, I'm not going to make that excuse there. But yeah, like I said, we did this in a couple of attempts. It looks messy towards the end, but the reason for that is because I screwed up on that trank. No one would have been that low had I actually completed my tranquility channel there. So as a healer, you definitely want to pay very close attention to pin down. You want to be aware when that's happening, and you want to make sure that you never ever get stunned in that fight, especially not in the middle of a channel like tranquility or divine hymn if you happen to be a holy priest. Beyond that, that's pretty much it. Is you just deal with the mechanics that he gains from each one of his mounts. Generally, it's just a new damaging ability. Tantrum that he picks up from the Elic, Rend and Tear that he picks up from the Wolf, the Superheated Shrapnel, the AoE Fire ability that he picks up from the Rylac, and then just the damage from pin down. And you continue healing through the rest of the fight. You deal with any debuffs that you see that you can dispel, especially during the Rylac phase. You want to make sure you dispel that conflagration debuff because it's pretty nasty. Otherwise, really not a whole lot to be concerned about. A pretty straightforward fight, I think. Just a lot of AoE damage. The main mechanic, like I said, you want to avoid pin down. As long as you can avoid pin down, you can just heal through everything else. Avoid pin down, dispel conflagration, heal through everything else. I feel like, you know, it wasn't too big of a challenge. We'll see what it's like on Mythic. From a personal point of view, I just need to make sure that I time things better. Our healers are still uncoordinated when it comes to using CDs. Everybody doesn't approach it the same way. Even I could time some things better. It wasn't fully optimal. I'm going to look for a better performance on our repeat attempt to kill him this coming reset. So we'll see how that goes the next time. But anyway, that's pretty much it, man. That's Beastlord Darmac on Heroic Blackrock Foundry. Hopefully you found this video informative in some way. And best of luck in your attempts. Hopefully it helps you get him down, or helps you to improve your overall performance on the encounter. Thanks for watching, man. Once again, I'm Savius, and I'll see you guys in the next video.